Speak 2 meters
meters
apart.
apart. Speaking moistly. Welcome everyone to Tuesday's edition of Speaking Moistly, the pre-Halloween spooky scary edition. Have you heard the rumor that in January, apparently the vaccine passports are just, they're evaporating, gone, poof, like a bad dream, just, you know.
I saw this on my Instagram feed. Actually, the first time I heard it, somebody called me and they said, well, Greg, and this person's vaccinated. And they're like, Greg, don't you know, like they're going to get rid of vaccine passports and like mask mandates. Like, aren't you excited about that? What do you think about that?
Did you say two? Go ahead.
Well, and I said, like, I'm like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah, Doug Ford said this and said that and said this. And I'm just like, I was just like, dude, really? Like, are we falling for this again? Like, this is,
that's exactly. So my whole feed was exactly the same. Like, haha, sucker. Like, Lucy got you again. And like, yeah, that's how I feel about this. I really do. I feel like it's Charlie Brown with the football, and I can't believe they got another 5 months out of this. Like, oh yeah, totally in March, right? Like, we'll open up the rest. And the thing is, one of the things they said is that bars and nightclubs are opening today, right? So, or yesterday, I guess it was yesterday, Monday, and
full capacity. You mean
full capacity? That's right. Yeah, and I don't think that I don't think it had anything to do with the capacity limits. Nobody said, let's go to a restaurant. Oh, let's not go there. The capacity limit's probably reached, right? Like, that's probably that's not happening. Those conversations are happening in my world, but my world's a little different than most, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's a few things I want to touch on. Number one is what I've started doing is I'm just straight up Babe Ruthing it. I'm just straight up calling my shot, and I'm releasing content and things. They're saying like, this is what is going to happen. And like, I'm just calling it right now. This is what I think is going to happen, because, you know, if you're like me, which you are, you know, we thought about Vax passes like a year before they even came up with those. Okay.
So what's your prediction? What's your call? If somebody was saying,
I made a tweet about it, but like, let's start with this first announcement. There's a lot of things that this announcement,
if it goes well,
well, this is what it does. It kind of does a reset. A reset.
Oh, a great
reset, if you will, of the kind of COVID brain and the COVID news cycle. Because what have we had before? We, like, you know, back in 2020, 2 weeks to flatten the curve, to, you know, just lock down, and then we'll go back to normal. Just do this, then we'll go back to normal. And this is like another version of that.
Yes.
Where it says, oh, hey guys, actually, if everything goes well, we will go back to normal. It's a new bright orange carrot from Doug Ford to dangle.
Doesn't it look delicious?
Look, it's like, here it is. We can all just go back to normal. Ooh, by March 2022, we're almost out of here. And it does a lot of things. It gives people, you know, normie asleep people, it gives people this hope. And then it also reestablishes the stakes of, don't mess it up, guys.
Yeah, it's your fault.
Who's going to mess it up? Like, you know, like, it's created the carrot, and it's like, whoever doesn't let you get that carrot is an enemy. Okay. Yes. Whoever gets in your way is an enemy. And it's like, in my kind of predictions, I was like, yeah, guys, don't worry. Just as long as there's no troubling trends during flu season, when hospitals are always overwhelmed for like the past at least 5 years in this country. Yeah, if there's no concerning trends, then everything will go back to normal.
Hallway healthfunny healthcare. What is that? What do you mean hallway healthcare?
Who reads these announcements? Like,
no, I mean, you're bang on. And that's the funny part. Like, the funny part, not the funny part, but the funny part to me is that it was so freaking easy. Like, it was just like, no, watch this. Yeah, like, we're going to do it again.
It was easy.
And the person, and like,
okay, like, I mean, it was easy. Like,
it was easy. Like, there was everybody was like, oh, did you hear? Right. Like, it's like, did you hear?
Yeah. Have you been here? Have you been around here for the past 2 years?
And the crux of it for me is, again, we don't have any metrics. We just have a date. Like, we have 2 weeks to flatten the curve. It's exactly the same as, well, it'll be March 2020, you know, 2022, it's fine. No metrics. And I said, what are we aiming for? What do they think it's going to look like in March? Yeah. What if we reach those metrics in November? Just like crazily enough. What if we reach that now? And like, no metrics there, just a date. Huh. Weird, right?
It's And it's like, what, you think our politicians would lie to us?
Why would they
Well,
lie?
well, Trudeau said there was never going to be a vax mandate in this country, and then 2 months
Uh,
later he changed his mind. Like,
Jason
are you
Kenney.
like, you follow the news, but do you follow the news? Like, you know what I
Jason,
mean?
yeah, man, for sure. Jason Kenney on like he had a Christmas tree behind him. It was December 31st, 2020. And he looked into the camera and he said, so they have restriction exemptions, not vax passes. So he looked at the camera and he was like, Alberta's never going to have vax passports. And you conspiracy theorists who keep pushing this, frankly, it's a little bit much and you guys should back off. And I reported on that because I was like, Jason Kenney, are you wagging your finger at me? And I said, like, I would love for there not to be vax passports, proof in the pudding, boyo. And they did repeal Alberta's ability to force people to have vaccines, but they're forcing them by coercion and other means. They don't need to directly, like, saying we're not going to force people to get vaccinated also means we're not going to fire people who choose not to get vaccinated. It doesn't mean like, you could choose not to be participating in this society that you pay taxes for.
It's not like they get off on a technicality. It's like, well, we haven't forced you down and injected you. So we haven't forced you to do it.
It's like you're a high paying.
You're basically like holding my family and job and livelihood hostage.
Exactly.
With like a gun to their head. Like,
imagine you're a woman who is a secretary in the 1980s, let's say, and you've got a pretty good job for a very powerful man, and the man calls you into his office and says, "We're going to put this in you, and if you don't choose to make that choice, then I'm sorry that after today, you're not going to be here, right? It's your free choice though, but it's time to, right? Is that okay? Then how come it's okay for the government to do that?
It's interesting how when you just change the like time period context, it makes it much clearer.
Right.
And I feel like it really speaks to how clouded our current reality is with just like information, like this sort of like information cloud constantly like permeating our reality. And like, back in the 1950s, when you just had a rotary phone and you showed up to a job and your boss was like, we're going to inject this into you if you want to work here. Like, it's a much more clear sort of.
Yeah. It's like, this isn't, I was making a sexual assault, like equivalent, but same thing.
Oh, right.
That wasn't a construction site office you were talking about.
Yeah.
Still, I think that it is very interesting how easy the public swallowed it, how much they'll fight for it because it's their frame of reference now again.
Yeah.
And to keep people safe, to finish the fight. This sloganization of it is really interesting.
Sloganization. That's a great word for it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's not surprising, but we just increasingly go into this crazy territory where they talk about science. It has nothing to do with science. It's like, hey guys, we're going to fight to end this pandemic. And it's like, if you talk to scientists about like respiratory viruses, like that you can't beat them. Like you don't just like win and they go away. So what are you talking about? Finish the fight. Like, what are you talking about?
Define what that means. They don't want it's
and you're right. It's a constant sloganization. It's rhetoric. It's just like, we need to beat this. We need to beat this. And it's and I've said this so many times, it's kind of becoming just a boring point. It's like, the actual just capacity for people to think is just like going out the window.
Reduced. I saw today they're looking at the FCC or FDA. It's probably not the FCC. It's the FDA. FDA is Drug Administration, right? They're looking at the 5 to 11-year-olds today, and a Canadian doctor, and I read it on my show this morning, said the vaccinating 5 to 11-year-olds will prevent 250 hospitalizations and 50,000 infections per million. And I was like, are we even getting that now? 250 people in the what's the hospitalization numbers in Ontario? It's less than that right now, isn't it? Like, or
this just sounds like this sounds like a really crappy pitch. I've mentioned this before. Like I used to work in radio, and we had a whole program. We had 2 different programs. I forget what they were called, but we would be able to spin information about our radio station and who listened to our radio station. And we'd say, wow, look how many people on our radio station buy grills from you, or who like your brand if you advertise, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, this is the same thing. And, how to lie with statistics. Well, gullible people. Anyway, we could talk all day on this probably.
Indeed, indeed. Did you hear Patty Haydu is out as the Minister of Health, and we have a new cabinet sworn in? I don't know. I think Freeland's still finance, but I don't know for sure.
I'm gonna need a new wig. A new wig then.
Darn it! Right? It's a male this time. Declue, I think, is who the health the health minister is, and
I feel like the Liberals' approach to like their cabinet making is almost kind of just normalizes incompetence to the Canadian public. It's like, hey, does it really matter who's the ministry of this or the ministry of that? No.
I thought it was decided over the traditional Justin Trudeau and Seamus O'Regan dart game, where everybody gets there's pictures of ministers on a dartboard, right? And,
yeah,
right.
They all get.
That's
drunk.
not how it's done. I thought
they all drink a bunch of Canadian whiskey and then they play darts.
Oh, I thought they imported.
You got an environmental minister. Oh.
Yeah, and then the traditional walking out into the caucus room and informing them, etc.
Oh yeah, no, the photo op.
Right. Well, the weird hugs, the awkward hugs, like the hug at the end of Harry Potter between Harry and Voldemort, or the hug between Justin Trudeau and Catherine McKenna, which seemed like pensive, like you were reading a romance novel, and if you skipped a little bit ahead, it would be like, "Where'd Sophie come from?"
It's disgusting. It's so disgusting how efficient it is, like how well it works on people. That's why I'm shaking my head. Like the amount of people that see this and say, "Oh, look at the pictures and look what they're doing. Isn't our country great?"
I saw a picture of them. So Sophie and Trudeau walking in masked. They live together. Apparently, they're supposed to live together. Okay, I know. But like, if you did like husband and wife being outside, you could probably walk in without a mask on, right? Like, but they're getting photo ops outside, masked. Do you know we had 2 parliamentary sessions in 2021? Like the last one started in June or July, right? Because it was prorogued, right? So Parliament.
Oh, right.
And then another one.
And then it's starting really late. It's starting in November 22nd.
Yeah, well, we don't need to. It's not like we need to go and debate anything or anything. There's nothing pressing. Like, why hurry? Let's just do the pomp and circumstance. I heard Justin Trudeau is going to go surfing again. Got to get one more in before sitting.
Yeah, I don't care about the surfing. That whole surfing. I think I ranted on this last week, but the whole surfing thing. Yeah, the whole surfing thing is the fact that our Canadian news media is focusing on that is disgusting.
I saw it today.
They're actually calling it a scandal.
Yeah, they tried to. I was like, oh yeah, not SNC Lavalin or the We
charity scandal.
There was another organization that got more money, $5 million, not $5 billion, $5 million. And they hired Trudeau's mom and paid her. So Trudeau's like giving, right? Yeah. So like Trudeau's government is giving money to these organizations, and they're giving money to his family. That's weird. Again, and it's not weak.
Well, I think it's although it's kind of like seems like a small thing, like the fact that the media is playing up this whole, oh, he missed a meeting on Reconciliation Day. It does so many things. First of all, it validates this day, which is kind of like trying to eradicate our history in a sense, or kind of like
it's rewriting. It's totally rewriting really, history. Yeah.
Like the whole premise of the day is a little kind of like, I don't know about that. And then number 2,
it's more than that. It's more than I don't know about that.
Number 2, it's in effectively memory holding SNC and We Charity, or like somehow equating missing a meeting
with
It's actually just like a mountain of horrible ethics. Like who knows how deep that pile is, and we haven't even gotten to
who knows.
There's this like huge pile of corruption, and it's like, look, he missed a meeting. It's like
100%
massive mountain.
But I want to go back.
Documents with blackouts on it.
I want to go back to just what you were talking about. Number 1, it's not okay. What was number 1? Sorry, you were talking and I lost my train of thought.
Number 1 is the premise of the day, Truth and Reconciliation Day. It
validates
this kind of day that's a little...
So you don't like, if you had a country, would you be like, here's a day for celebrating how awful and terrible we are? Like,
Yeah.
Would that be a day that you like? Let's have Canada Day, and let's have 2 weeks off at Christmas, and let's have Thanksgiving
and the name,
and
the
let's
name
have
of the
this day.
day, the name of the day again is this crazy globalist, like, spawn child, like Truth and Reconciliation Day. Like, you're gonna have truth first of
We
all,
don't have
and
truth.
then
Yeah, like
reconciliation. Like, it's like such a loaded name for a day. Like, this is truth and this is Judgment Day, basically.
yes,
Oh my
that's it.
God, this is intense.
It's to counterbalance all that icky nationalism from Canada Day. Like
Icky
cap
nationalism.
off your summer with truth and reconciliation day. No, I don't think that it does anything I don't think that it does anything meaningfully to, you give your bureaucrat class the day off with pay, and you say, you're welcome, Indigenous First Nation people. Like,
yeah,
what?
exactly. It's the epitome of like, hey guys, we're going to continue to tokenize and marginalize you and just kind of use you as a very useful pawn in the political arena.
Yeah.
And, enjoy the Indian Act still being in effect, and like you not being able to like own private property.
And then to add insult to injury, not only does Trudeau blow off the meeting, but they use that to overshadow the other real scandals. And not to say that's not a scandal, but there are massive scandals. That's an insult, and it should not stand by a prime minister.
Absolutely.
It's very insulting what he did. And I'm not saying, I'm not trying to compare the two, but the fact that they're using that to cover for these other scandals and basically make them all go away, like poof, gone.
I think it was very intentional. I thought the whole thing was intentional,
fully,
because how do you campaign harder for the Truth and Reconciliation Day than to, Trudeau the hypocrite, like it creates a whole narrative about how important the day is, and the day is so important, and blah 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 blah. And at the same time, it was a really great like 4D chess play, to be honest, by Jerry Butts, whoever formulated it.
Yeah, for real. It's very interesting to watch, and it's very interesting to see kind of, you could kind of feel it when Paul Martin was going to go. You could kind of feel it when Harper was going to go. I mean, everybody pretty much knew it was going to be Trudeau in Canada. 2 weeks out from the election, I think, because it was going to be more clear, like people didn't want Harper anymore. And I think we're getting to that point with Trudeau. But the question to me is it going to be Freeland, or is it going to be somebody else? Carney? I don't think Carney.
It's going to be Carney
to take over. You think so? I don't think, because Carney will have the same problem as Ignatieff did. And Ignatieff was seen as kind of an American, opportunist, right? Just kind of like,
I think if the globalists want to accelerate as fast as possible, they'll try to get what's her face Freeland in, because that at that point we will literally have a kindergarten teacher running.
But see, she doesn't resonate. It doesn't matter that people
it doesn't resonate, and that's why I think Carney essentially has a conservative aesthetic. So he'll come forward and say, like, I know about money, and I'm going to fix. And if they groom him to be the right speaker, then he'll be a great choice, because it'll be like, oh, Trudeau is dumb, but this Carney guy, yeah, he's totally like a professional, and
his teeth,
he's way more corrupt and everything. But we won't focus on that.
His teeth are yellow.
People don't care about
that. I know, but they do though. They can
solve that in an afternoon, bro.
I know, but they need to. And then you get sensitive teeth. I don't know. But he'd need to. That's a problem that we need solving. But
actually, and you know why Freeland won't work?
Yeah, do you want me to list the dozens of reasons?
No sex appeal. No, I'm talking about the real reasons that are important, Mark. Oh, she's not experienced.
She's got the mom head tilt, and not the milfy appeal that you're looking for. Is that it?
That's I mean, her sex appeal is she's a more niche sex appeal, I think. There's certain people who definitely find, you know what, I need to stop talking, because I don't we don't want to. Some people might be eating while they're to ruin their lunch.
Yeah, we're gonna definitely stop that train of thought, because holy smoke. I mean, I'm not even eating it. It's a little bit unsettling. Right? So
horrible. No, she's
it's not gonna happen.
Can you imagine her being the prime minister and people thinking it's a good idea?
Every time I see her make a speech and talk down to Canadians, it's like you're saying that it's like a kindergarten teacher, but it's even worse than that. It's like it's like a French teacher. Like, I grew up in Ontario, and in
Mhm.
Ontario, in southwestern Ontario, in the 90s, in late 80s, 90s, if you had a French teacher, generally the French teacher commanded less respect than the regular teacher. It was like having a supply teacher, and the kids never
Yes.
respected
Okay.
the
Yep.
French teacher in my
Gotcha.
experience. And I
Yep.
I was a saint. No, I wasn't a saint, but like I didn't think I was as bad as the other kids, but I'm sure that I was just as bad. But it was like it was distracting, and I didn't learn very much French, but it was like it was almost night and day. Like the regular teacher would walk out, and the French teacher would walk in, and like the classroom would change into just unbelievably like just different
Yeah.
versions of the kids,
Yep. Hmm.
and the French teacher didn't seem able or willing to even acknowledge that any of this was happening. It was like they're going to teach the lesson and ignore it
Yeah.
until they can't ignore it anymore. And then like sometimes a principal would come in. I had a lot of bad classrooms when I was a kid, but fundamentally,
I had a very similar, like, I know the exact archetype of what you're talking about. We had a
yes,
French teacher in my public school who got no respect from anyone.
yeah,
And like there was a crazy year the one time, and she actually left partway through the year because
yeah,
we had some like rambunctious kids who like, and plus it was the perfect setting for murder. Our classroom was in a portable
yeah,
separate
yeah, man.
the
My
rest of the school. But I wanted to go back to Freeland there. Like
really,
I yeah,
okay,
no, because
yeah,
to me, if Freeland were to get like, what is the opposite of meritocracy? Like, if Freeland gets in, like she represents that, and
it
how
would be
it's like,
like it would
it
be like
doesn't
your
matter how
dad.
competent you are. It just matters your identity markers. And it's like, okay, you're a female, you're a liberal. That's that. Like, why wouldn't you like her?
It would be
She's
like, yeah,
she's
well,
a
female
female
liberal.
liberal who cares about the environment. Like this is all we need.
Yeah.
This is all we need to run the country is,
The,
do you like, what are your genitals?
that's it. That's it.
What color is your shirt?
End of questioning.
Great. Well, what about what about her speaking skills? What about
Oh no,
her like not
she's a good speaker. Like it's difficult to be.
and be racist? Stop worrying about all this like nonsense, like how competent you are. If
They'll start comparing her to Joe Biden. Like, Christina
Mm,
Freeland runs circles around
mhm.
aging Joe Biden. Joe
Yeah,
Biden
and
holds arms up entire time.
but isn't it terrifying with all that's happening? Biden, like all this incompetence everywhere,
Yeah.
seemingly voted in, and everyone's happy about it. And like,
Yeah.
oh, that what happened in Afghanistan is like the best possible outcome.
Yeah.
And
And
like,
the real scandal is Trudeau surfing, and definitely not all of the other scandals that are going on.
yeah, and it just makes you think like, this has only been after like 2 years of propaganda. Can you imagine if we keep going for
Oh, I
another
think it was more than
8 years?
that. No, I think
Like
it's been more than that.
Greta Thunberg will be king of the planet, queen of the planet by 2028 if we
Her
continue with
well,
this.
just like Biden. It's not really like there are a lot of people other than me who have said that it seems like the Biden Tucker Carlson talks about the
Can you
Biden
imagine?
administration and
Can
not
you
Biden
imagine
himself, right?
like 6 years from now? There's a clip of a clip like all the crazy environmentalist kids have grown up, and then there's Greta Thunberg. She's the
Mhm.
queen of the world, and she's like, "How
Queen,
dare you?
the head,
Off with their heads!"
I don't know. Yeah, Greta.
Climate heads roll, and it's like, finally, yay, we saved the planet.
Yeah, I don't know if Greta. I mean, I don't know if Greta's gonna. She was dancing the other day, there was some kind of world climate change. I guess COP is on right now, COP 26 or something like that. So she was like on stage dancing with somebody, and I thought, well, that's. I mean, that's an interesting life for a school kid from where's she from? Sweden, wherever she's from, and she speaks. Yeah,
Sweden.
she speaks good English, right? She speaks English
Yep.
well.
Mhm.
But I think that the whole thing is well, I think I've talked about this before. The science behind masking is about as good as the science behind the global warming stuff. And like, I think the rationale and the silencing that we've seen that has been rampant on social media and across the web in the last 2 years, I don't, like you said, the propaganda is just the last 2 years. I don't think that's true. I think that we've seen,
That's true. Yeah.
I think we've seen undermining where people are naturally drawn by the evidence based on entrenched power and entrenched established science. If that's true, then this can't be true, right? Like,
Mhm.
like to
Yeah, no, and we talked about this last year on the show. Like, there's so many parallels between the pandemic and the climate stuff. It's an
Yeah.
invisible
Yes.
boogeyman.
Yep. Yep.
We're all gonna die
There's a whole.
unless you listen to us or pay us. And anyone who disagrees with any of these things is racist.
And if you look at the internal emails for the climate people, for ClimateGate 2009, ClimateGate 2011, I think it was, it totally smashes their entire argument to smithereens. And also, when you try and figure out how exactly they got the climate measurements from like 100 years ago across the mid-Atlantic Ocean, because like they're filling in data, like they're the only way it could possibly
there's a
be
lot
there.
of there's a lot of holes in the climate thing.
Yep.
And it's just such a big topic, and it's just like, let's just simplify it to 2 words: pay the carbon tax.
Have you seen?
Shut up.
Have you seen hypernormalization?
No, what's that?
It's great, dude. It's a YouTube documentary, and I watched it. I think it's
hypernormalization.
Hypernormalization, and the whole premise is basically in the 70s, going into the 80s, the modern news as we know it didn't exist, right? But it got birthed then, and they decided that basically the reality of the world was too complicated for your average everyday American. And because American culture went worldwide, like it's the kind of one of the zeitgeist for the West anyway. Like it informs Chinese culture, but it's a big one because it went so far. This went all the way, but the news that was created in the 1980s was meant to be very like A or B. If you're in camp A, you're in camp A, and you're not in camp B, right? Like it's very not polarizing per se, but since the 1980s, in the 1990s, moves were made by Congress to polarize further and separate Democrats from Republicans. And in Canada, we've seen demonization of conservatives for no reason other than their beliefs. So like demonization is part of it, but it's taken so long, and it's the simplification, the oversimplification is what's highlighted in hypernormalization. It talks about, well, it's a very interesting documentary. It's worth a watch. I'd
probably be fascinated in that.
Oh yeah, it's very interesting.
I went to school for media studies and all that. And
it also talks about other propaganda campaigns from the USSR, like the Soviet Union, and science fiction writers from the Soviet Union, and parallels with like from that to now. It's very interesting, and I highly recommend it.
Well, to speak to solutions really quick before we go, because I know you have to go soon.
Yeah, man.
I've been asking the question to my fellow Canadians: what is the opposite of being demoralized? And I don't know what the answer to that necessarily is, but I really feel like before we can even create meaningful change or movements or what have you, we need to really get people not be so demoralized, because there's a lot of able-bodied, able-minded people who are just like, well, what am I going to do? And you know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's so many people across the country who feel this way. There's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do. But there really could be potentially. Yeah. But it's like, kind of getting that morale back, getting that hope back is something that I think is so powerful that a lot of people don't have right now. Obviously easier said than done, but
well, I think you got to
meditate on that question. What is the opposite of
hopeful, right? I think maybe hopeful and
it's a lot. It could be, you could write a whole essay on what the opposite of being demoralized is.
You could. That's true.
Write your essay in the comments below. Looking at least 1,000 words, 500 to 1,000 words.
Well developed, please.
Yeah, well developed. We'll be grading you with likes.
Yeah. To the best essay, I will give a copy of my book. Okay. For real, yo. Yeah. So, I mean, if there's only one essay and you don't want to pay for my book, it's super easy to get it because it'll be the best one there. Okay. I think that takes us to the end. I mean, there's so much more to talk about, and I always want to talk to you midweek. Like I always want to talk to you more, but we never find the time. And then we always get together. And today you were late, but there've been times where I've been late, and it's like, man, we should make more time for this, but life gets in the way. That's all right. But thank you for joining me as usual. And last thoughts, where can they find you?
You can find me, Greg Wycliffe on YouTube. Link should be in the description. I'm also Greg Wycliffe, one word, on Instagram, and I'm still on TikTok at GDub, GDDUB. That's the same as my Twitter handle as well. Thank you for
Nice.
having me, Mark.
Yeah, man, as always. For me, you can find me at CanadaPoly.com, CanadaReport.co, and SpeakingMoistly.co. We'll get our back catalog and other interviews I've done, including Maxime Bernier, Chelsea Hillier, and Paul Hinman, the leader of the Wild Rose Party. And Chelsea and Max are obviously PPC. So if you're interested in that, that's all there. Probably, I think. Thanks for watching out there. Greg, hang out in the green room for a minute, and we'll see you next time.